Clarence Thomas never misses an opportunity to disappoint me. In a 6-3 decision today, the Supreme Court voted to dismantle the Voting Rights Act. 6 conservative justices, including Clarence Thomas, voted to disenfranchise millions of black voters, voters of color all across America. And all of them should be held accountable, don't get me wrong here. But specifically Clarence Thomas, being only one of 2 black justices, the only black man on the court, votes to dismantle the voting rights of his own community? The same community that worked for decades to uplift black voters and black voices in our government votes to then go undermine all of that work. That's despicable. Am I surprised? No. Am I disappointed? Always. But this issue just really blows my mind. The cognitive dissonance he can have sitting on the highest court of the land, never has to worry about getting elected, makes a decision that makes it so much more difficult for black voices to be amplified in our government. Shame on you, Clarence Thomas. Shame on you.
In 2014, a Texas billionaire named Harlan Crow quietly purchased 3 properties in Savannah, Georgia. One of them was a home where an elderly black woman lived. That woman's name is Leola Williams. Leola Williams is Clarence Thomas's mother. A sitting United States Supreme Court justice sold his mother's house to a GOP mega donor and told nobody for 9 years. That's not where this story ends. That's not even where it begins. By the end of this episode, you will not be asking, is Clarence Thomas corrupt? Because if you clicked on this, you probably already know the answer to that. If Clarence Thomas has 0 haters, that means I've been run over and killed by a PT Cruiser. Because Clarence Thomas should have never been a Supreme Court justice. Had we listened to this black woman, he would have been in the back of a police car and not on the bench of the Supreme Court. In 1991, Thurgood Marshall retires from the Supreme Court. Big Bush says, hey, we need a black and a Republican to replace him. Who does he pick? Clarence Thomas. The Senate Judiciary Committee sent a subpoena to a black woman in Oklahoma named Anita Hill. But why? Well, in 1981, Clarence Thomas is working for the Department of Education. In 1982, Ronald Reagan gives him a job to chair the EEOC. In all 3 of these years, he had a black woman named Anita Hill working up under him. And in all 3 of these years, he sexually harassed this woman. Anita says that for 3 years, Clarence begged her to go on a date with him, would bring up his manhood in the workplace, would talk about his pubes and things of that nature, would talk about explicit films, all in the workplace during the 9 to 5. Anita came in to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee to tell her story. The only problem is the people she was testifying before were 14 white men, and they weren't trying to hear anything she had to say. Frankly, a lot of their line of questioning was disrespectful.
Committee, what was the most embarrassing of all the incidences that you have alleged? You testified this morning that the most embarrassing question involved, that's not too bad, women's large breasts, that's a word. Are you interested in writing a book? It is appropriate to ask Professor Hill anything any member wishes to ask her to plumb the depths of her credibility. You are not now drawing a conclusion that Judge Thomas sexually harassed you.
Yes, I am drawing that conclusion. That's
I understand.
Anita tells her story in excruciating detail. Clarence responds and calls this nothing but a high-tech lynching. And that was it. Clarence Thomas still becomes a Supreme Court justice. Anita Hill goes back to her life as a professor at Oklahoma State. She receives death threats, and nobody believes her. Clarence Thomas wouldn't speak about this, wouldn't even really deny the allegations until he spoke about it in his 2007 book, My Grandfather's Son, where he called Anita Hill his most traitorous adversary and said that she was mentally ill. Anita Hill is still alive, still a lawyer, still a professor of law, and I hope wherever she is, that she had a great day today.
Here's a guy who, by his own admission, and there should be no shame in this, by the way, got into Yale Law School because of affirmative action. I think that was fabulous. I think nothing wrong with it. He apparently is ashamed of it, so much so that once he became a jurist on the courts, he decided his first and foremost obligation, apparently, was to help usher out the very programs that had opened the door for him. I'm not sure how to think about that except to believe that that is someone who does not have a problem with the system of white supremacy that marginalizes other black folks as long as he got his. And he got his, and then he got out and basically said, that's it, we're done with that. I think if you look at his rulings, and particularly if you contrast his behavior as a judge and as a justice with the man he replaced on the court, Thurgood Marshall, it's very interesting to see that one of the greatest jurists in American history when it comes to civil rights and when it comes to human rights and progressivism was replaced by one of the most reactionary justices because George H.W. Bush knew that you had to replace the black justice with another black justice. He didn't want to replace him, however, with the black justice that had a connection to the movement, that had a connection to the struggle. So he found one that had no connection to the struggle and, if anything, was ready to spit on the struggle. You look at what Clarence Thomas has said in these voting rights cases. He is perfectly prepared, apparently, to uproot the Voting Rights Act of 1965 because he thinks, as do many of his white colleagues, that we can trust the states that have a history of racism to just do everything right, which of course is absurd. The only reason they've been doing things right lately is because there's a law in place that forces them to do things right. And as Justice Ginsburg said, to say that you can get rid of that law just because it's working right now is like saying that I don't need my umbrella when it's raining because I'm not getting wet. Now, you're not getting wet because you got an umbrella. That's why.
Hello and welcome to the Books of Blacks. In today's video, we will be reacting to the reactions of blacks and white Americans on Clarence Thomas's latest vote and why blacks specifically talk about him and what he's been doing very much recently. If you're new to this channel, please do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel, give this video a like, and let's get right into it because this first clip is going to explain a whole lot more. Let's do this.
You know, Clarence Thomas is actually a DEI hire. He was put in there by the Bush administration after Clarence Thomas died. After Thurgood Marshall died.
Thurgood Marshall, yeah.
So Thurgood Marshall was off the court. So they went, where can I find a nigga who will do... Because there weren't that many conservative black people back then.
Right, they needed to find a Republican black judge.
And he was it.
And
I think he was in charge of the Fed. I don't think he was even a judge. I think he was a lawyer, but
he wasn't a judge?
I think don't misquote me, but I'll say this. He was so unremarkable that for decades he said,
before being appointed Supreme Court, he was a judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals in the Columbia Circuit.
Right. And so he was an unremarkable judge.
Okay.
But MAGA loves unremarkable people. They love MAGA picks black men the same way white dudes pick dogs. They want obedient dogs. They want dogs that do what they want. Name me a remarkable black man they pick. Is Tim Scott remarkable? Is Byron Donalds remarkable? Is Clarence Thomas remarkable? They'll never have a street, a library, or have a stamp. Their whole reason for existing is because they are amenable, they are obedient.
Specifically, Clarence Thomas, being only one of two black justices, the only black man on the court, votes to dismantle the voting rights of his own community? The same community that worked for decades to uplift black voters and black voices in our government, votes to then go undermine all of that work. That's despicable. But this issue just really blows my mind. The cognitive dissonance he can have sitting on the highest court of the land, never has to worry about getting elected, makes a decision that makes it so much more difficult for black voices to be amplified in our government. Shame on you, Clarence Thomas.
Now, let me explain this type of black person and Republican, because everyone probably has one in their life. And if you look at any pictures of Clarence, he's always with his Anglo persuasion. He just has pretty much ousted out his black life. But when you have totally disowned a people, number one, they're not very accepting. If Clarence Thomas were to walk into a black church, I don't know what happened. I really don't know what would happen. I don't know what would happen because we all know what he's done. He wouldn't be welcome. I mean, black people, though, are very welcome, but we don't forget. We've welcomed in some of our enemies to the worst places or the best places. We reach out to people. That's just who we are. Let's stay on the outrage kick. Here's a lady that's outraged by the whole voting rights thing, and I'm glad the noise is out there. And I'm glad that it's coming from my Anglo brothers and sisters because it is wrong, guys. This is wrong. in so many ways.
Even begin to imagine how tired of us black people have to be. After the Supreme Court did what it did today, I don't see how any American could stand by this, but I can only imagine how sick to fucking death of us they are. The Voting Rights Act, people shed blood. They felt so strongly about being able to vote as they should have, that they were willing to spill their blood for it. When have the majority of us white people ever felt that deep about anything? I've never been more disgusted with the conservatives.
And one of the most brain-breaking things about this ruling is it's literally taking power from black people in the South, and it was voted for by a black guy from the South. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas is black. He might not know it, but he is black. How could you, of all people, vote for this, Clarence? You were like an uncle to all of us. Uncle Clarence Thomas. Uncle Thomas for short. Uncle Tom for short. But look, we don't have to pretend here. At the end of the day, we all know that this decision was not about moving on from race. This is the Supreme Court majority handing a win to Republicans. I know that, you know that, and the Republicans definitely know that because their leader said it out loud.
Mr. President, I want to go back to the Supreme Court ruling on their Voting Rights Act. I know you said you haven't seen it.
When did it come out, just now?
No, it came out this morning, but basically very much narrows the Voting Rights Act.
Was it considered a win for
a win for Republicans?
I love it.
You could always count on Trump to get right to the point. Like, it's a win for Republicans. Did you guys hear that? I know this guy did.
Clarence Thomas was once a left-leaning radical, and now he's one of the most conservative members of the Supreme Court. So how did that happen? Thomas went to the College of the Holy Cross during a push for increased black student enrollment through affirmative action. Here, Thomas adopted the Black Panthers attire, combat boots, a beret, and he hung up a poster of Malcolm X, whose speeches he had memorized. He played an active role in the university's Black Student Union, leading protests and advocating for social justice issues. In 1970, he protested the trial of 2 Black Panther members in Boston, during which violent clashes between police and demonstrators broke out.
After rioting all night, I returned to Holy Cross at about 4 in the morning and asking myself a simple question: what did I just do?
Thomas traded his combat boots and beret for a suit and tie. He got accepted to Yale Law at the exact time the university adopted an affirmative action program. Thomas's shift to the right started at Yale when he met a mustached classmate, John Bolton, who would eventually become Trump's national security advisor. They met after Bolton returned Thomas's lost wallet to him, which sparked a decades-long friendship. Around this time, Thomas took down his Malcolm X poster and replaced it with a photo of a Rolls Royce. Out of school, Thomas went to work for John Danforth, the then Republican Missouri Attorney General, who was looking to hire a more diverse staff. In 1980, after spending all of his time with the conservative Attorney General turned senator, Thomas switched his party affiliation to Republican and voted for Reagan. Thomas was hired onto the Reagan transition team. He rose through the ranks, eventually running the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And when George H.W. Bush took the reins, he nominated Thomas to replace the departing Thurgood Marshall on the Supreme Court. The hearings, led by then Chairman Joe Biden, concluded after 10 days, but a major development emerged during them. Anita Hill's allegations of sexual harassment by Thomas during her time at the EEOC and Department of Education. Biden limited the investigation's scope by allowing only a brief time frame, giving Thomas the first and last speaking slot and denying 3 other women the chance to testify about other allegedly inappropriate behavior by Thomas. Thomas denied every allegation and was confirmed for a lifetime appointment by a 52-48 vote in the Democrat-controlled Senate. As a justice, Thomas wields significant power to carve a path and reshape the world we live in. His career has been defined by decisions that chipped away at the Voting Rights Act, overturned landmark rulings like Roe v. Wade, and championed the rollback of fundamental rights. His sway even extended to affirmative action's erosion. Amid his work on the bench, Thomas received numerous lavish gifts, most of which he didn't disclose, from his far-right buddy Harlan Crow. Thomas's life is a stark reminder of how power and privilege can intertwine. In this case, to the detriment of the progressive values he once held so dear.
But you gonna burn in hot, fiery hell. You will burn in hot, fiery hell for that, because what you're doing is disenfranchising people of your same hue, sir. What is the justification for that? The Constitution should never be something that is interpreted word for word without the idea that Black people would one day be liberated. Now, Clarence Thomas is what they call, from constitutional law scholars, a strict constructionist. That means he wants it to be interpreted word for word, letter for letter. Whatever the framers meant, whatever they wrote, he wants to interpret it in that very strict way. The problem is, Clarence's ass wouldn't have been on the bench. He would not have been on the bench.
Clarence Thomas must resign.
I'm just a civil servant.
And if he doesn't, well, if there was ever a case to impeach a Supreme Court justice, this is it. For years, Thomas failed to disclose flights on private jets, super yacht trips, and stays at resorts he received as gifts from a Republican megadonor. Even though the Supreme Court has no legally binding code of ethics, and justices remain among the least accountable people in our government, legal experts claim that Thomas violated federal disclosure laws when he failed to report the free travel he was gifted. But at the very least, he's violated the public's trust and corruptly exploited his position of power to subsidize a life of luxury. Enough is enough. Supreme Court justices clearly can't be trusted to police themselves, and Chief Justice Roberts has shown little interest in holding justices to account for numerous conflicts of interest. The Supreme Court is facing a serious legitimacy crisis, and failing to hold Thomas accountable will only make it worse.
Why did my husband, who is white, just ask me, doesn't Clarence Thomas know that he's Black? Or is he just the Black white supremacist from the Chappelle Show?
Because what you mean, Clarence Thomas here, the ultra-conservative Black white supremacist Supreme Court justice, voted against affirmative action and the Civil Rights Act while benefiting from both. Now, why is that important? Because now that he's helped dismantle the Civil Rights Act, Trump has said he's now retroactively going after those who hold degrees gained by affirmative action. So 2 things to that. 1, that case now has to go in front of the Supreme Court, in front of Clarence. So if he agrees to this, he is stripping himself of both his degree and his position on the bench. So I just can't wait to see how this plays out.
So reports have it Clarence Thomas is now crying to Black Americans. He says he can't step out anymore in peace. He is complaining that somebody is always bothering him in public. Now, a lot of people say he is saying this after betraying his own people, after closing the doors that lifted him up, after spending 35 years on the Supreme Court dismantling everything that helped Black folks, and now he wants sympathy. This, for them, is the ultimate betrayal. This is what happens when someone sells out his culture for class. This is the definition of an unclaimed term. We're in 2026, and yet Black people are still going through a lot. Now, let me break it down for you. Clarence Thomas, by his own admission, got into Yale Law School because of affirmative action. He benefited from the civil rights movement. He benefited from Brown v. Board of Education. He benefited from the Voting Rights Act. He replaced Thurgood Marshall, a giant who fought for our people. And what did he do? He spent decades trying to destroy everything Marshall built. He voted against affirmative action. He helped got the Voting Act. He's been part of the decision that makes it harder for Black people to vote, harder for Black students to get opportunities, harder for us to get justice. Black Americans built ladders for him through blood, even sweat, marches, and a lot of sacrifices. And he turned out and said, "That's it. We are done with that." He doesn't have a problem with white supremacy as long as he got his. He got his seat, he's gotten the power, then he pulled the rug from under millions of Black folks coming from behind him. Remember Anita Hill? In 1991, that brilliant Black woman who came forward and testified that Clarence Thomas harassed her for years? She told the world how he talked about his manhood, explicit films, and made her workspace like a living hell. A panel of 14 white men disrespected her. They didn't believe her. Clarence called it high-tech lynching. You remember that video, right? We just watched it. Now, decades later, her name still haunts him. Because what? Truth doesn't die, my friends. Now, we in 2026, Clarence Thomas is complaining he can't go out to public peacefully. Black people are saying, why should you even have peace when you've made our lives harder? You don't relate to us anymore. You don't feel the same pain we feel. You don't feel the pain of rising grocery prices, housing crisis, or even voter suppression. You've lived elite, sit on yacht, enjoy the benefits of, what we gave you. Many black people are saying enough is enough. Black folks are no longer taking it. We are no longer accepting it. We have long memories. The internet never forgets. Every time you rule against us, we remember. Now, you forgot where you came from. You forgot the struggle. You forget our struggle. You chose class over culture. That's what many black Americans are saying. This man, Clarence Thomas, has been in court for over 30 years, longer than most people in America are living today. He's one of the biggest reasons why we need term limits in the Supreme Court. Lifetime power with no accountability has crafted and created monsters who forget the place they came from. To every black American watching, to every black person watching right now, this is why you must stay vigilant. This is why every election matters. The judges they appoint affect us for generations. You see, it's already been more than 30 years. We cannot sit down and we cannot stay silent. Clarence Thomas represents the biggest internal threat. The one who looks like us, but some say he works against us. He's the poster boy for why we must build our own personal institutions, our own wealth, our own structure. We cannot depend on people who sell black people out. He wants peace. Real peace comes from justice. Real peace comes from doing what is right by your own people. Real peace comes from inside. Until, to be honest, he repents and starts using his positions to uplift black Americans like they did for him, truth be told, I'm not sure the peace will ever come. Black Americans are emotional right now, and to be honest, rightly so. I think a lot has happened to blacks, and we can't start talking about it right now, but we know we can feel it in our genes. We fought for this rights during the civil rights movement. He lived through it. We saw the sacrifices, yet he still chose the side of the oppressors. Now, to Clarence Thomas, there are many people you have hurt. History will remember, ancestors are still watching. One day, you will have an answer for closing doors to your own people. He surely has a reason for saying or voting or giving that decision he passed by. To my black brothers and sisters, this is all I'll tell you. Hold your heads high, reject sellouts, support leaders who actually fought for us and are still fighting for us. Build, educate yourselves. We don't need anyone's validation. We don't need even their powers. Now, if you've enjoyed this video so far, please do well to drop your comments in the comment section. What do you think and what do you think about Clarence Thomas? Have you ever seen this ruling affect you in your community? Should there be a term limit on Supreme Court justices? Tell me in the comment section and I'll see you on another one. Bye-bye.